Greetings from the far side of the galaxy, I'm Fuuri, your host with the most, here to tell you a story about titties. I'm sorry this episode took a hot minute to get out. This was supposed to tie into the festival event, but that biking video you should totally check out, by the way, kind of got in the way of that. Remember that I do these by request, so leave whichever transient you want next in the comments. I've decided on doing Melusine after this one, but the slot after that is still open. However, none of that's too important right now, we have another video to do today. Where was I? Like and subscribe, blah blah blah. Oh, there we are. Today's Housamo hero is Hurai's prideful poet, Licho. Licho is a white tiger transient from Hurai, the world based on ancient China, and a member of the Asakusa Gurus. We don't know his rule or role, but we do know his sacred artifact very well. It's that scroll at his side, and its power is a weird one. By writing a poem on his scroll, he can suggest people believe it, but only if he himself already does. And the artifact doesn't make someone believe it, it only suggests that they believe it, so the artifact's effect can fail. It's a very weird artifact since it needs to be based on something believable to even work. So, what was the logic behind Lifehunters giving Licho such a needlessly complicated artifact? The logic behind his artifact lies in his inspiration, since Licho is based off of Li Zhang, a character from the Sangetsuki, aka the moon over the mountain. It's a Japanese short story by Atsushi Nakajima based on an existing Chinese story about a poet who transforms into a tiger. I won't go too in depth, but the story goes like this. Li Zhang was renowned as a genius and became a well-respected civil servant. However, he felt that he was destined for more and he left the position to become a renowned poet. Unable to find literary success, he is forced to become a civil servant again, but at a far lower position. This proves to be too much for Li Zhang's ego, who eventually flees into the night. Eventually, Yuan Khan is traveling through the forest in a governor's procession when he hears the voice of his childhood friend. He comes to realize that it's the voice of his old friend Li Zhang, who has now transformed into a tiger. Slowly becoming a beast, Li Zhang laments and asks Yuan Khan to publish his poetry and tell his wife and child he died. As Yuan Khan leaves, he glimpses a pallid tiger without luster or dignity howling at the moon in agony. Honestly, this short story was really good. I've included a link in the description because I totally recommend you read it. From the start, we can tell that Lifehunters didn't do a very liberal interpretation of Licho. Save for the wife and kids, Licho is Li Zhang. Both failed to meet their early expectations of success as a poet and transformed when they couldn't accept their failure. Even the part about Li Zhang being a civil servant rubs off on Licho, who's vice president of Uramichi's student council. Beyond even that, the part about the tiger looking sick and pallid was translated into Licho having white fur. Although I'm not really sure why Lifehunters made his name Licho. Maybe it was copyright, maybe it was translations, I don't really know. Of course, I recommend you check it out in the past events since it has been translated. Getting back into Licho's backstory, the part where Licho differs the most from Li Zhang is in the ending of their tales. Rather than talking to his unnamed friend, he runs away, crossing over into Tokyo. Once Licho was in Tokyo, he joined Uramichi Academy, a school known for its delinquents. Since Licho is from an event rather than the main quest, let me walk you through the Jiangxi Night event. Of course, I recommend you check it out in the past events since it has been translated. To pick back up where we left off with Licho's backstory, it begins with Licho talking to Sanat Kumara atop Uramichi Academy about the soon coming Halloween festival. Licho, as party organizer, has planned a huge event with the popular Daikayama Academy and the surrounding Taito ward. Sanat gives Licho a few words of sagely advice about staying true to his path in life before we cut away. While the rest of the summoners are stuck in the Daikayama crowds, the player went ahead to meet Hanyuman at Uramichi. Then they meet the walking motorcycle Nessa and then Tetsuwaks, who they force to dress up as a Jiangxi. Side note, or well, side lore, a Jiangxi is a classic Chinese vampire that hops along with outstretched arms due to rigor mortis. We quickly move to Gang Li at Benten's solo concert, solo in the sense that nobody came. They're interrupted by Licho using the PA system to announce the festival's closing ceremony. After the announcement, Licho explains to a few Jiangxi students his plans to fill the auditorium with smoke and spook the guest. In the auditorium, Licho explains the story behind the soul incense that brings back the dead as the room fills up with smoke. Yet, when a scream is heard and the smoke clears, it's revealed the Jiangxi have gone way too far with their pranks. Licho tries to explain but freezes up when confronted with his failed plan as Sanat shows up and you escape with some of the guests. Before going back inside to rescue the rest of the audience, they run into Shinya, Teramati, and Kalki. After a slip of the tongue, Licho lashes out at the three of them despite knowing it was a misunderstanding. Despite the player being the POV, we get a lot of inner dialogue and conflict from Licho, who knows what he's doing is wrong but can't stop. Back in the auditorium, Tetsuwatsu gets angry at Licho for disturbing the dead, but the Dageyama gang shows up before he can unleash his rule. Thanks to Teramachi's quick wit and Licho's artifact, they're able to convince everyone that this is a play and calm things down. Fun fact, the play they put on is Tetsuwatsu's canon backstory. Okay, how far are we? Chapter 1? Oh gosh, I'm speeding things up so this part doesn't take 20 minutes. The first part of the second episode begins with Gang Lee and Benton telling the rest that the smoke had been swapped for real soul incense. Thus, the gang moves out to control the situation before more Jiangshi go berserk. The gang stumbles upon a wild pair of MILFs, Babylon and Ziz. They're fine seeing as Babylon has started being herself and mothering all the Jiangshi. Things are going fine until she and Matsumi get into an argument over parenting styles, forcing the Jiangshi to go berserk again. They get the Jiangshi to calm down with an impromptu talent show and Babylon and Matsumi make up. Sanat does show up and plays devil's advocate to get the guests the Jiangshi harmed to forgive them. The gang, now joined by Babylon and Ziz, follow the incense cloud to Nakamise shopping street. At Nakamise, they run into Yule and Krampus, who's dressed as Yama from Dragon Ball, Yama from Japanese Buddhism. Things are going fine until they hear another scream and the Jiangshi go berserk. As the chaos mounts, they turn to Licho, who just can't do it anymore. Every step of the way, Licho has been met with failure after failure, so why bother trying to fix this mess? With no other artifacts or options, they go with Krampus's idea of holding an improvised Super Sentai show. Oh yeah, Super Sentai is the original Japanese version of Power Rangers. With Babylon and Tetsuwatsu acting as the bad guys and Krampus himself being the hero, things get off to a shaky start. Thankfully, after the player helps Licho out of his downward spiral, he uses his artifact one last time to save the day. As the epilogue winds down, we learn that it was Christine and Yarlanthotep who swapped out the incense on Sanat's request. No, wait, it wasn't at Sanat's request, but an imposter's. The imposter flees into the night, leaving the three to wonder who has the skill and daring to impersonate a game master. Oh, that summary took forever, and I still skipped a lot, so watch the event yourselves. Although, to be honest, the Jiangshi Night event was pretty good. I really like Licho's character. The idea of his ego only heightening his fear of failure makes for something really relatable. Now that we're finally done with the summary, let's start talking about his units. Like always, his 3 and 4 stars share the same skills, but his 4 star does have a skill evolution. His first skill changes hit enemies to blow type at 70%, inflicts curse at 60%, and reduces damage from blow type units. His second skill, N-Beast Clothing, is basically a mediocre filler skill that gives him tenacity and CP after moving. Thirdly, we have Power of Suggestion, which lets him do extra damage against all enemies who've had their attack type changed. And finally, Bombastic Narrator applies Skill Lock on hit at 70% and Brawn on phase start at 90%. His skill evolution is called Tiger of the Evening and replaces Power of Suggestion. It keeps the bonus damage against attack type changes, but also gives him Glint Strengthening for his charge skill. And it also changes his allies' weapon type to all if they're adjacent to him when he has more than 89 CP. Overall, this dude is really good, like holy shit, oh my god levels of good. You know how I harp on not having 100% proc? Well, this dude doesn't have 100% proc and he's still worth it. If this is the bar his 4-star sets, then I'm terrified to think of what his 5-star can do. Next up is his Festival alt, which got a recent reprint last month. It's a water-type long-slash unit themed after Kingyo Sukui, or Goldfish Scooping, a classic festival game. A really nice detail is that you're able to see masks of his fellow Uramichi students Hanuman, Gang Lee, and Sanat. The reason why Licho is here is that he was invited to help manage this New Year's festival by Kate Sith due to his experience. His first skill gives him 100% proc for concentration at phase start and 90% for spirit and combo after moving. His next skill is on hit, letting him change enemies to none 16%. 16%? Okay, so he almost never changes enemies to none and always changes himself to magic. Oh, and he gives hit enemies weakness with 60% proc. His next set of skills apply on miss, with concentration at 100%, guts at 60%, and vigor to allies one square around him at 70%. His final skills are after moving skills, giving tenacity and vigor at 100% and 80% respectively. And finally, he finishes out with inflicting oppression to enemies in a 2-square diamond radius. Jeez Louise, they just loaded his 5-star with skills, and you know what? His 4-star is still better. I didn't mention it earlier, but 4-star Licho is magic type, which means he covers a huge range with some of the best debuffs in the game. While his 5-star is a good DPS, it was doomed to never compare to something that good. 4-star Licho isn't just one of the best 4-star units, he's one of the best units, period. For my recommended teams, 4-star Licho works with anyone, so you have no reason not to use him all the time. 5-star Licho likes to move, so pair him with units that don't need to move like Behemoth or Festival Tezcatlipoca. The end of this video is approaching, so let's go ahead and take a look at his relationship chart. Gang Lee and Sanat Kumra like him since they respect Licho's ability to look inwards and reflect on himself. And Astaroth likes Licho since they both enjoy fine arts. On the other side of things, Tetsuox dislikes Licho due to him resembling the tiger that killed his mother. Licho himself likes Durga and Alp since the three of them all strive for self-improvement. And strangely enough, Licho dislikes Sanat, but that's only because he's easily intimidated by his upperclassmen. I'm like 90% sure he doesn't have a loading screen, so the fun fact is that the pose Licho's 3-star is doing is a Kung Fu salute. And with that, I think we finished up everything about Licho we needed to cover. Thank you for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe and leave whichever transient you want next in the comments. If you want more Housamo heroes, you can try binging my Housamo heroes playlist for them all. And as always, this is your host Fuuri signing out.